I'm wrapping up what I've read in January and February because I didn't do a January wrap up, and I don't know if I'll do like monthly wrap ups unless I've read a lot, and I haven't read a lot, at least by booktube standard. I just almost started filming this video in slow-mo, and also then my dog started barking, so we're off to a good start. But I'm back on the floor and I'm here to talk about books again. Can you see my dog at the door? I'd let him in, but what he does is comes in, walks around a bit, and then asks for me to let him out. So the first book I read of the year was The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and I read this because I'd been hearing a lot about it from everywhere, all over booktube and bookstagram. My boyfriend was like, I'll buy you a book sometime before Christmas, and I picked this one. And I haven't actually read it, as you can see, because I ended up getting an audiobook version of it with my Audible credit, because I just, at the time, I think wanted to listen to stuff and didn't have the focus. So I gave it 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I would definitely recommend it. And you will see later, I didn't enjoy Daisy Jones as much, but it's a very good read. Made me cry, I'm not gonna lie. There was a few things that happened that I was like, oh my god, how is this fair? Like, it's just not fair. Didn't predict kind of the twist. I don't want to call it a twist, but kind of the reason that Monique was picked, I guess. And I don't think that's a spoiler because of the fact that throughout Monique's like, well, why is she interested? And Evelyn's kind of like, well, there's a reason. And then they just don't say until near the end. Also, sorry if there's rattling. It's the wind and I can't really do anything about it. It makes the windows in here rattle, which is annoying. So that was the first thing I read. The second thing I read, I don't have a physical book of, because basically I bought that before, and then there's a couple that I listened to on audiobook that you'll hear about in a bit that I bought the books after, and that's because I like to have the physical book if it's a book I really enjoyed. So I have the physical book. The next book I read was Daisy Jones and Six. I also listened to this on audiobook, which is going to be a trend. I listened to a lot of audiobooks in January and February. I just didn't, my brain wasn't switched on enough to read a physical book, really. I did read a couple of physical books, but they just, I don't know, my brain just wasn't very happy about it, basically. So I read Daisy Jones and the Six because I really enjoyed Evelyn Hugo, and I was like, okay, we'll get that on audiobook now. And I wanted to kind of be like, I don't know, relive the experience, I guess. But it didn't live up to it for me. I gave it 3 stars, and that's not to say it wasn't an enjoyable book. It's just, it felt like Evelyn Hugo was more of a book for me, and Daisy Jones just wasn't, if that makes sense. So, good book, and it's definitely for a lot of people, but just not for me. And in audiobook form, it's really enjoyable to listen to both of them, because it feels like something that's actually happened. Because it feels, especially with Daisy Jones, feels like you're listening to kind of like a biography of a band. But I just wasn't that interested in any of the characters. I found them, I guess they're deliberately all a bit self-centered and obnoxious because of the type of people that they are. But I just didn't really care about any of them. And so I just didn't enjoy the book as much. Whereas like Evelyn Hugo is also not that much of a likeable character. I felt like with Daisy Jones and the Six, everyone started off really privileged, and then they continued to be really privileged and continued to be assholes to most people. But again, I think it's a book that a lot of people enjoy, and I really enjoyed the format. It's just I didn't like the characters that much, and so I wasn't as invested as I was with Evelyn Hugo. The next book I read was also 3-star, and it was Mr. Right Across the Street by Kathryn Freeman. I got this as an early release copy book through NetGalley, and I started off being like, then I really enjoyed it, and then I started being, again. And so I definitely want to read some more of Kathryn Freeman's work because I enjoyed the way she wrote about the characters, but the issues I had was it was really heavily reliant on the trope of like, I'm not like other girls. And the way that the main character Mia addressed this was, in one way, she didn't see it like she was above other people because of it, but in other ways it came across as like she was just being really deliberate in it, and like really was proud of herself for being not like other girls. And I guess just the older I've got, that trope just doesn't really appeal to me because it's founded in misogyny essentially. So, and then Luke, I quite enjoyed that he wasn't really shamed for his past, like, because he's had a lot of sexual partners or whatever, like, that's fine. But the thing was, Mia had like a big issue with it, blah blah blah, and I was just a bit like, because it wasn't like he was inherently being treated bad because of it, but you could see that she had issues with it, and it was just, I don't know, it felt, I guess the characters felt younger than they were. I think they were in their 30s, or at least I think Luke was in his 30s. Mia might have been in her 20s, like late 20s. Could be wrong about that, but I know he was definitely older, like they were definitely at least about 30. And so I just didn't feel like they were their age. It kind of felt like something that maybe someone around my age, which is 22, was experiencing, I would be more understanding of. And there was just some bits that kind of annoyed me, and there was this whole thing where she kind of made friends with this group of girls, and that was really nice, but then it kind of got sidetracked and dropped a bit. But I liked the premise of him like showing her around town, and yeah, there was a lot of things I did like about it. I just wasn't sure on the execution of certain parts, essentially, and it just felt like they were really bad at communicating. And I know in real life there are a lot of people who are really bad at communicating, but a lot of the times when I read books and the communication would be so simple, it drives me up the wall, because I'm like, all you had to do was say, hi, I'm struggling with this thing from your past, or hi, I heard this rumour, can you like confirm, deny, can you give me some more context? And then like hiding stuff from each other, I just, yeah, it was just seems like a bad foundation for a relationship for me. And again, I get people find it more difficult to communicate. I just don't like that in my books. I don't think so. That's something that comes up quite a lot, where I'm just like, can you talk? Whereas in real life I'd be much more empathetic and understand. But in a book, I just don't want that. I just want people to be able to communicate, and for their issues to be issues that like they need to address, rather than the issue is the fact that they're not addressing it, if that makes sense. So I gave it 3 stars. I think I said that already, but again, I want to read more of her work. I'm conflicted, because I'm like, I did enjoy it, but at the same time there's just stuff I didn't like, so that's why I gave it 3 stars, because I think it was a nice book, but it wasn't like a 4-star for me. The next book I read was an audiobook again, and it was A Girl Like Her by Talia Hibbert. I was really missing reading Talia Hibbert, because I absolutely loved Get a Life, Chloe Brown, Take a Hint, Danny Brown, and I was waiting on At Your Age Eve Brown, which I now have, and I've started reading, and I would have liked to have read it in one day, but I'm just really busy at the moment. I've got like a lot of deadlines coming up, and I'm in my last year of university, and I'm just finishing on my dissertation, like finishing editing it, because that's submissions next week, so I haven't had time to read the whole thing. But at the time, At Your Age Eve Brown wasn't out, and so I just really wanted to read something by Talia Hibbert, and I've been recommended on my Bookstagram that A Girl Like Her was a good book, and I gave it 3 stars because I did enjoy it and I thought it was a good book, but it wasn't like the same level as Get a Life, Chloe Brown, or Take a Hint, Danny Brown, and probably because it was an earlier release. It might have been her debut novel, I'm not sure, I could be wrong, and I'm still going to read the second one, that is my plan. There were things I really liked. I liked the characters, I think they were all cool. Yeah, there was issues with communication in A Girl Like Her, but I found it to be more believable and understandable than in Mr. Right Across the Street, and I don't know why. I think it was because they were over things that people were finding difficult to discuss, rather than things of just like, I don't want to find the answer out in case it's true. And I think both of them didn't partake in that, so generally it would be Ruth was a little bit cautious about addressing stuff because of how she'd been treated as like the town outcast, whereas Evan would just directly address stuff. He wouldn't let her kind of hide away from it. And I guess Mr. Right Across the Street was a bit more difficult because they were both doing it, and I think maybe that's where my issue comes in with communication in books, is when no character is trying to resolve that in a reasonable amount of time and not in a coincidental, it just kind of happened way, and you're just like, oh please just have a conversation. It's not as good as Get a Life Chloe Brown or Actual Age Eve Brown, or I'm gonna guess Take a Hint, did I say Take a Hint Danny Brown or Actual Age Eve Brown? There we go. I don't think it's probably going to be as good as that, but I can't say because I've not finished it, but I'm enjoying that book so far. Next book I have as a physical copy, but I didn't read it as a physical copy, was The Hating Game, so that should probably tell you something about this because I purchased the physical copy after, and what that tells you is I absolutely loved this book. It was so steamy. I just loved the characters. I liked that Josh apologised for some stuff. There was a little bit of stuff that I was like, I'm not sure about that. Like, there's something we find out later on that's meant to be like a cute gesture. And I'm like, I find that to be a little bit weird. But in the context of a romance story, I can take it with a pinch of salt and be like, yeah, that's funny, that's cute, I love it. Just if it was in real life, I'd be like, I'm gonna go far away. There is a enemies to lovers. I do like an enemies to lovers. I also like a friends to lovers, which I'll hit on in a minute. Yeah, it's about Lucy and Josh, and they work together, and then this promotion kind of comes up. I don't know, there was obviously this like underlying chemistry and attraction between them. I really enjoyed seeing this kind of caring side come out of Josh more and understanding his background. And again, there was like this communication issue at one point, but Josh wouldn't let Lucy get away with not communicating about it. And I think that's what I need out of the book. I can understand communication issues, but I need one character who wants to resolve them. So that's all I ask, really. And that is definitely a 5-star read, and it was just a great book. I would really recommend it. I think it wouldn't be suited for some people, but if you like an enemies to lovers, you like a romance, you like a little bit steamy but not too over the top with the smuttiness, then it's definitely one for you. And also if you just like cute stuff as well, because there is cute things going on and protectiveness, and not in a, well, I mean, there was a little bit too much alpha male for me, but the rest of it was pretty reasonable protectiveness, and I just thought it was quite funny as well. So if you think you would be interested in any of those things, definitely recommend The Hating Game. And because I enjoyed Sally Thorne's The Hating Game so much, I then picked up 99% Mine, and I did actually read the physical copy of this. I think I was a bit harsh with this because I only gave it 2 stars on Goodreads, and you can go read my Goodreads review, it's got spoilers in it, so I think that was a bit harsh. It's probably a 3. I don't think it's a bad book. As I said, I really like Sally Thorne's writing. I didn't like the characters, and I think that's the problem. Because with Mr. Right Across the Street, I did like the characters, I just didn't like some of their behaviours. Whereas I really didn't like Darcy in this book, and because she was the main character that we were following, I just found her to be really unenjoyable. And so obviously the book was then harder to get through. But that being said, it's not a bad book because I read the whole thing. I didn't DNF it, and so there was obviously something about it that redeemed it for me, and I think it was the whole friends to lovers. But she just ran away from a lot of her problems, and I guess that's another one of those kind of communication things for me, and I just could understand where she was coming from. I just didn't like how she approached it. In a hypothetical scenario, I liked Tom, but in the practicalities of this book, I just didn't. So maybe if he'd been with someone else, I would have liked him, but there's just some things that I found iffy, and I really didn't like. I think his name was Jamie, which was Darcy's brother. They just reminded me of 2 spoiled brats, and I just didn't like them at all. And I think that was my main issue, is that I just didn't enjoy Darcy as a character, and I just felt like the 2 of them were so immature, and I just couldn't handle it. I don't want to put people off this book, because I do think it's a book that a lot of people will enjoy. So I guess what I'm saying is, if you enjoy friends to lovers and you like kind of, I guess, the tension that's built up from a childhood, well, teenagehood friendship, that where they've kind of obviously both got this attraction and flirting, but they've both been kind of too anxious to take it further, or just don't think it's a good idea to take it further. But it wasn't for me, because I like to have characters that I really like. And another thing that I really like out of books is when they build up the kind of characters around the main characters. So for instance, I like when the family are kind of in the picture, or there are more friends in the picture. There were a couple of friends here and there, but they weren't, I think there was like one, but they were kind of not that relevant. And then there was like this bar job that Darcy had, and then it just kind of disappeared. Yeah, I wanted more from the other characters, and we heard all this good stuff about like Darcy and Jamie's parents, but then the book just didn't really reflect it because we never saw them. And then another one was like their grandmother, which is like how they end up doing up the house, Darcy and Tom. Like there's a bit where she didn't leave any inheritance to Tom, and I don't get that. I know that he isn't technically family, but they push home so hard the fact that he was practically her third grandson, and he was like part of their family, like a third child for their mum and dad, always around, their best friend. And then the other thing, I'm trying to think of a way to say it that isn't a spoiler, but there was something that was kind of revealed that Darcy's grandmother had helped with, and it was kind of built up, like it kept being mentioned, and I was like, okay, so where's this gonna go? Like, is it gonna cause like family drama or a rift or something? But it just doesn't really come up again, and I was just a bit confused. I just didn't like Darcy, and I think I could have overlooked the loose ends if I'd liked Darcy, and I just didn't. But again, I don't want to put you off the book because I think it's well written. I think it is for someone who likes friends to lovers, building on childhood friendship and then teenage kind of crushes, how they kind of reunited in the future. It just wasn't for me. That's what I'm trying to say. I really made that convoluted. I actually told a lie. That wasn't the book I read next. I actually read 2 books before that. So the next book I read was You and Me on Vacation, which was also a early release copy through NetGalley. And I also think it's being released as People We Meet or something like that. So it's being released, I think, in next month, May maybe? April, May, something like that, by one publisher. And then I think Penguin are publishing it as You and Me on Vacation in June. So it's by Emily Henry. And I didn't realise, but I'd heard Paperback Dreams talk about Beach Read, which I've now picked up because I absolutely loved You and Me on Vacation. I gave it 5 stars. And this was a friends to lovers book that I guess satisfied what I wanted out of 99% Mine, but I read this first, so it's built on 2 friends. I guess they're kind of similar to the characters in 99% Mine, in the sense of like they come from this town and he doesn't have a lot of money, she's got more money, kind of thing. They didn't know each other when they were in this small town. They met each other at college, and she wanted to travel, he wasn't. So, well, he wanted to travel, but he wasn't like as into it as her. And it's kind of divided between a couple of timelines. There's like, you see these holidays that they took every year over summer that you flash back to, and then you see the current one, like the current timeline, where she's working as a travel blogger for a magazine. And that's not a spoiler because it's introduced really early into the beginning. And she gets in contact with him because they've had a falling out and you don't really know what happened. So she gets in contact and is like, hey, I found this picture, kind of thing, because she really misses him. And she pretty much straight on was always like, I've always had like a crush on him, basically. Or at least it was pretty clear from the beginning. I can't remember if she went as strong as saying she was like in love with him, but I don't think she did. But it was obvious that they had always had something underlying. You hear about their really fun little adventures. So one of them I really enjoyed was, I can't remember if it's their first one, but they met like this group of other kind of teenagers, and he's much more reserved and held back, and she's quite like outgoing. I just really liked their dynamic. And then when obviously you saw them in the future and they're like fully grown adult, you're seeing them kind of deal with what it means to be an adult, and her being someone that wanted to escape her hometown desperately, and him as being someone who was really loved his hometown, and how that built into not a conflict but built into, I guess, a tension in this obvious chemistry that they had, because she'd be critical of the hometown all the time and desperate to get away, whereas he couldn't relate to that. And then you learn like about his family dynamics. She's got this friend that she's really close to, and again, I just really like when there's kind of additional characters built up so that you get to understand the main characters more. And I just think it was a really, really, really nice read. There was a couple of steamy scenes, but it was just, you just were like rooting for them the whole way through. And so another friends to lovers, if you want to read it, I guess. So it is kind of like friends to kind of not talk, I don't want to say strangers, like acquaintances to friends to lovers. It was just a really good read. I really enjoyed it. I definitely recommend it when it comes out. I'm not sure if it's still on NetGalley or not, but if you can get your hands on it at some point. And the final book I read in January and February, this would have been February, was The Closeted Princess by Brooke Ellis. I got contacted by the author on Instagram and she asked if she could send it to me in exchange for an honest review. And I said I wasn't sure if I was comfortable reviewing things on my Instagram because I don't really, I guess this is the first kind of talking review that I've really done. I don't really review things on my Instagram. I just like to take pictures of books that I'm reading or have read. And so I said to her that I would review it and place it on Amazon and Goodreads if she wanted me to, but if not, it was fine, because I could understand if she wanted it exposed kind of to an Instagram audience. And she sent it to me really kindly, and I'm going to talk about it because it's what I read, and it's a really nice book. It's a children's book and it's got these cute illustrations throughout. I think it's self-published, I could be wrong about that, or it's like published through Amazon. I don't know how that works. And it's basically the LGBTQIA plus representation that I would have loved as a child. And so I think it actually made me want to read more children's books, because I'm really interested in children's fiction, because I have really fond memories of reading when I was younger, from Jacqueline Wilson's Gruffalo to like Hungry Hungry Caterpillar to I think it's Florence's Blanket or something like that. So it's about Princess Amara, and essentially she has so many days to find her Prince Charming, because it was tradition essentially, and she goes on an adventure to try and find him. I mean, I guess you can guess by the title. Doesn't end up being Prince Charming. Maybe Princess Charming. Yeah, I just think this is a really sweet book and definitely worth picking up if you're kind of nostalgic for children's books. If you just want to read some kind of cute LGBTQIA plus representation. I'm not sure what category Amara falls under, like what sexuality. Obviously she's a woman who loves women. I just would recommend. I think it was a really, really cute read. So I read 8 books in January and February. So while they're the books I completed, I do have more books that I've started, because I went from someone who reads one book all in one go to being someone who has like 400 books on the go. So I actually have another, I think 5 that I just want to briefly mention that I've been reading. So the first one is The Henna Wars. I don't have it with me, it's upstairs. I forgot to bring it down because I only brought the ones I've actually read. And it's really cute. It's, well, cute so far. It's another LGBTQIA plus book, and it's about a girl who, like a young girl, teenager, who realises that she likes women. I think she's a lesbian, I could be wrong. And I was reading this for the Sapphic Stories book club. I'm about 44% of the way through according to my Goodreads, and I haven't finished it. It was actually the January pick for the Sapphic book club, and as I said, I haven't finished it because I just was so busy, and then I got sidetracked by other things, and I really want to finish it. But also there's certain stuff that I'm not sure about that kind of, I guess, put me off while I was reading it. But I do definitely want to finish it, and I will finish it hopefully this month or next month. I've just realised that the rest of the books I was going to talk about are actually March reads. I started them all, I think, on the 1st of March. So I started 4 books on the 1st of March, and I'll just briefly talk about what I'm currently reading, so you can maybe expect them to be in a wrap up for my next one, if I do one in March, or if I do like a 2-month long wrap up again. So I have Red, White and Royal Blue by Casey Mcquiston. Is that how you say it? I think so. I'm sorry if I've said it wrong. So I'm about 10 pages through that or something. I don't have any opinions on it yet, it's too early. Feminine Gospels by Caroline Duffy. It's a poetry collection. I've read one of the poems so far. Again, too early to have an opinion. Will My Cat Eat My Eyeballs? And other questions, something like that, by doughty, who is deaf positive, and she's got all these books about death, and she has a YouTube channel that's amazing called Ask a Mortician. I really enjoy her content, and I'm really enjoying this book. I'm actually a bit further through that, probably like 20-30% through. Would recommend that one so far. And I still need to finish From Here to Eternity, because as I said, I've got really bad at finishing books, and it's not a reflection on the books themselves, it's a reflection on me, because I'm also really enjoying From Here to Eternity. It's really interesting to hear about other countries' death rituals, or kind of other specific death rituals, I guess I should say, because they're not really like generalized country ones. They're more like, here's this specific community that partakes in this. The final book I'm reading is another audiobook by Jonathon foer, I think is how you say it, but again, probably wrong, which is about climate change and eating animals and the environment. And I guess I haven't got that far into it, and I picked it up because Lena Norms was raving about it in numerous videos on her channel, and I was just interested. I think it's been interesting so far, and hopefully I will get that one finished in March. We'll find out. But I hope you enjoyed my wrap up, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.